Hi, this is Cheryl Mays from Rise and Shine CF, and we are presenting the Author's Lane. Every day I come to you with a new author that shares their inspiration, their motivation. They share their heart, that put these words to paper that you are actually been given and you are allowed to experience something in your life, rather it be a healing, a form of entertainment, some sort of self-improvement, whatever it is, there is an author out there that is willing to help you and share with you. And today I am very, very excited because we have Barakah Smith, who is the author of Stranger in a Familiar Place. And so I am going to invite Erica Barakah to join us. Hey, there
Hi,
she is. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine, ma'am. How are you?
I am fabulous. I listen. I was sharing with Barakah earlier. I went to look at her book on Amazon, and I started reading just the promo, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta get this book." It is just so interesting. So I am very excited to have you come on and share with us about the book, about you, about where this transpired, how it actually came about, because
hmm
I've had an opportunity to chat with you before, and your story is just so interesting. So I am very, very excited. So, guys, here it is. This is Barakah Smith, the author of Stranger in a Familiar Place. So, Barakah, tell us a little bit about you and how this book came about.
So this is actually the culmination of a hobby that got started way, way, way back when. I've been writing sort of behind closed doors for a while, and I finally decided, this book was going to be the one, so to speak. There was something stuck about it, about Stranger in a Familiar Place, that I just really could not get away from. And actually, usually I have four or five different stories bouncing around in my head at some point, but when it came to trying doing other things, I could not move on. So I was like, there's something about this book, I gotta finish it, and this is going to be the one I'm going to start out with, and we'll see how it goes. Um, so that was how it pretty much got started. The inspiration for the story in of itself, there's two main authors that I really looked up to. One is Frank Peretti, who is a Christian fiction writer,
Okay.
and C.S. Lewis. Frank Peretti is most known is for This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness, which are really fabulous books, by the way.
Okay.
And then, of course, everybody knows the series of C.S. Lewis and his stories. They're just phenomenal. So I kind of wanted the story to read like a C.S. Lewis, where you take on this fantastical journey,
Mhm.
but there's so much deeper meaning behind it than just the simple story if you're willing to look a little further into it. So the whole premise is based off of what happens when people go into limbo or purgatory, or they have these out of body experiences. And some people say they see their mom, their dad, a friend, a loved one that's already
Mhm.
passed on. They saw heaven and hell. So it kind of got me thinking after a little bit, like, well, what actually, happens? I was like, let me put my own little twist on this and see what I can come up with. And it's actually funny because I had another interview where this, girl and I were talking about, how it's so hard to come up with an original storyline
Mhm.
because, especially nowadays, I laugh because I'm like, zombies was a thing, the last big wave that took hold. And then before that, it was vampires and werewolves. And I was just like,
Mhm.
hey, I'm all werewolf, vampire, zombie down. I'm good. Um, so when I wrote Stranger in a Familiar Place, I really wanted to be unique. Most people are like, it's a polar bear. There's a polar bear in the front cover. I'm like, yeah, I know. You really don't see that anywhere. There's only really one book I've ever read in the age group that I'm writing for. And that was, well, it's not, technically not in the same age group, but it's The Golden Compass, that has a
Mhm.
polar bear as a character in the book, but not featured as a main character. So
Mhm.
I'm like, this is gonna be different. I'm gonna go for the gold size. That's what people are looking for anyway. So that's kind of how we got started, so to speak.
That is so interesting because, to your point, when I looked at the book, I thought maybe he just ran into a polar bear. I didn't know that the polar bear was actually a part of his journey, which is so interesting. So for you actually started out as writing like short stories.
That's correct. I wrote short stories. I wrote essays for school functions and everything. And actually, I won a few awards in school and everything. I never thought about making a career out of it necessarily as far as being an author. I did consider investigative journalism, but after finding out what you really got to do, I was like, investigative journalism's not for me. Um, I've even written one screenplay. Uh, I probably won't ever do that again, not at least for the genre I wrote it for. It was a romance. I was like, romance is not for me. But yeah, that's pretty much how I got my start, is just writing short stories that eventually elongated into full-blown books. So,
That is so interesting because when you think about individuals that are looking to write a book, people actually go straight to the book instead of, short stories to kind of get yourself, it's kind of like leaning into it to see, okay, if this is truly what I want to do, is this the purpose that I'm having? And you found that this book was literally a purpose for you.
it was really honestly just taking a chance on myself. Again, when you think of C.S. Lewis, you think of him as one of the greatest, authors. He's renowned as one of the greatest authors, in our generation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, is my book worthy enough to sit on a shelf next to his? There's that niggling doubt, like, your book's not that great, man. So it really was a kind of a leap of faith and a chance on myself to be like, yeah, you can take a shot at yourself, and if not, then you can get the feedback you need to be better.
I love that, because we're going to talk about that feedback towards the end of the interview. But now I have to ask you too, because when we talked, you didn't have a title for your book when you first started doing the book. And it wasn't until you got help to get the title.
Yes. Actually, I started it. I knew overall what I was going for, but every title I came up with, like, just gave everything away. And I'm just like, this is not working. I was like, I don't know what to call it. And so one day I'm on the phone with my dad, and I'm like, Dad, I'm trying to do this book, and I don't know what to call it at all. And he's like, well, what happens? And I told him what happened, and he's like, why don't you just call it Stranger in a Familiar Place? It just rolled off his tongue like it was nothing. I'm like, Daddy, that's brilliant. So my dad is actually credited with coming up with the title. So I love him.
That is an incredible story. I love that story. As you sit here and you've probably been pondering like for weeks on what's to name the book. And then within a few seconds, he goes, hey, Stranger in a Familiar Place.
Pretty much. I'm just like, man, come on.
It can't be that easy.
You know what? It was funny because all my other titles have been very easy. I knew exactly what to call the book. This book, when happened, and then my father, who it just rolled off his tongue, and I'm like, Daddy, man, how do you do it?
Because he didn't have all the pressure on him. His thoughts were just clear. So now these two. The concept of the book is like that as you stated, it's that in between. You're not alive, you're not dead, you're just kind of floating and you're experiencing things. Mm-hmm. So is that something that was always of interest to you?
No, it wasn't exactly an interest to me. Actually, the root occasion would be is that I remember having an out-of-body experience myself with, I was sitting, I remember vividly, I was 9 years old, and I fell asleep on my dad's arms, and all of a sudden, I can remember seeing myself. I remember vividly seeing him, seeing me asleep. I wasn't panicked or anything like that. I just remember seeing everything in such detail. And I sat there and stared at myself for about 5 minutes, and then later on woke up. And I can remember even the TV, the TV show that my dad was watching. I would have not known it, had I not been sitting there watching myself. And it only happened, I think, 1 or 2 other times. And then at the age of 12, it never happened again. Mm-hmm. But just that whole concept really stuck with me, about being able to see yourself and having this question of, well, what happens, or what if, or how come? Mm-hmm. And the choices or the events that take place that put you in those situations.
And that's so interesting because, people often wonder, you hear people say, you know, if they were in the operating room and they were on the operating table that, you know, they might have flatlined, you know, for a period of time and then they came back. But while they were away, they saw the light, or to your point, they saw some past relative or something. So it's always been such an interesting phenomenon about, you know, what happens after you go away. And so share with us, because I'm telling you, I find this book so interesting. So share with us the relationship between the two characters.
So the main character, Elias, is shows up in this unknown world, and the bear, polar bear, his name is Malak, and he just shows up and's like, "Hey, you called for help?" And the guy just kind of looks at him like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, of course you did. You wouldn't have called me if you hadn't asked for help." And it's just like a weird, all of a sudden, like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna help you out. You're good. Come on, let's go." So Malak starts acting like a guide at first, and he tells him, "Hey, we need to do this, and this in order to get you where you need to be." But in the middle of it, a friendship actually develops between the two of them during this whole thing. That's one kind of probably unexpected for Malak, and definitely unexpected for Elias.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole thing is that Malak has issues, that may hinder him from helping Elias and may even get Elias killed on top of that. So it really is a story about that developing friendship, that budding friendship that happens, and then the test of their friendship altogether, and the choice we make ultimately.
That is so interesting because, when you're going through something, a lot of times you're going through it alone. And, you kind of wish you had somebody there with you, if for nothing else, just for support. And so
Mm-hmm.
to take a journey like this and, to encounter something strange, because it's not a person, but
Mm-hmm.
to have this strange encounter and then to take a deeper look at this relationship. And so for a reader, what message did you want a reader to get from this book?
This is all about choice. A lot of times that people say that I had no choice in this, or I didn't get to do this, or didn't have to do this, or I didn't want to do this, or whatever all else may happen. I'm sorry, my cat is trying to bother me. Um, but they didn't want to do this, or they didn't want to do that. And really, life is just a series of choices. Whether we choose to be Buddhist, Islam, Christian, we choose to, be Satanism or Christianity, or we choose to be a mother, a father, a doctor, you name it. Life is full of choices. But the choice that matters most is the one that goes toward life. This book is about choosing life, and living that life to the fullest. So that's kind of what I want for the book to come across, is not only to kind of give you a picture of, hey, what's my life going to look like, if I die, but also, am I choosing life?
And I think that is so important, because a lot of times you'll have individuals that they want something in life, but because of fear or because of their limited beliefs or because of things that have happened in their past, they don't allow themselves to fully immerse in the opportunities that are in front of them. And so it just seems like this is a opportunity for you to take an outside look and see somebody else's life and then go, well, wait a second. I see myself in this situation here where I'm not moving forward, or I'm not allowing myself to, better understand what the possibilities are for my life. And you can kind of see yourself and go, okay, wait a second. Today is the day. Today, I declare that today is the day that I'm going to get up, I'm going to get dressed, and I'm going to live my life.
Exactly. I mean, it pretty much goes in that place. And people who picked up the book, have asked me already, like, hey, I noticed that you didn't give the main character very much detail. And I was like, yes, I did that on purpose. I wanted sort of an androgynous character, one not necessarily in gender, but one that if you read this book, you were like, oh, that's me. Like
Hmm.
there's no details to say that that couldn't have been you. I originally planned to write the book where there were no definitions of male or female, and it was just a character, but that proved incredibly difficult. Um, so I was like, we just got to make it a boy, and we're just not going to give any details on it because I want it to be, if you picked up this book, you could relate to this character. Um, so that's basically what I did. But yeah, the overall thing is to choose life, and maybe they'll choose, because it is based off Christianity or Christian themes. So maybe, hopefully, they'll decide to follow after Christ after it.
This is awesome. Guys, listen, if you have not heard of this book, you truly want to go to Amazon because it is available on Amazon, correct?
Yes.
Is it available any place else other than Amazon?
Yes, it's available on iTunes and Barnes and Noble. The iTunes is just an ebook, but Barnes and Noble's is available in paperback and ebook along with Amazon.
Okay, and I'm going to put that in the comments for you guys. That is available at iTunes and Barnes and Noble. And listen, you got to get this book. I mean, if you're looking for an interesting read, something that is just entertaining, it's self-helping you to actually look at your own life. I love books like that where you learn something. I call it edutainment, when you're being educated and entertained at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And you finish and you go, wait a second, they tricked me. I learned something. Here it is. I thought I was just laughing and being, emotional and crying. And here I actually learned something about myself. So I love that. So let me ask you this. How long did this book take you?
Well, as I said, it started off as a hobby. So if
Mm-hmm.
I had to take the whole writing process itself and shrink it down to its essence, it probably took me about a year. But the whole writing thing in general took about 4 years.
Okay.
Because I was writing on and off on it, and at some point it just stuck on me. So it took about 4 years to write this book, but if I shrank it down, it probably took about a year.
And what was so interesting when we had our conversation, because I wrote this down, and you were talking about you had some ideas for some other books, and
Mm-hmm.
then God said, no, you've got to put this book to paper. So you literally had a message sent to you saying, no, this is what I want you to focus on, and this is your assignment.
And since I finished the book, I have had nothing but a string of ideas, one after another. I've literally had to pick an idea and run with it because I've had so many of them after I got done with this. But right now, I'm going to work on an indirect sequel for that book. I love the Malak's character so much. I like the concept of what I wrote so much that I wanted to expand upon it. So we'll do something. It won't be necessarily with the same characters per se, but it will definitely be linking and referencing to the first book.
Wow. So I think I just heard an announcement. I don't know about you guys, but I just heard an announcement on the Author's Lane that there will be a sequel to this book. You never know what you're going to get on the Author's Lane. So this is why you want to stay tuned every day. I'm just saying, you got to be here. Well, Barakah, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Hey, so I have a couple of questions, and they're a little quirky, but it gives readers an opportunity to learn more about you and to go, wait a second, that's pretty cool. So everybody has a word for the year. So this is a word that kind of keeps them focused, whether you go left or right, and it allows you to get back on track. It kind of grounds you. So what would your word for the year be?
My word for the year probably would be goal. And I know it sounds weird because you think of things like perseverance or self-control or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I chose goal for the year is because I do have a lot of milestones to meet up for this year. And they're good things. And I think that having a goal in mind for the year keeps you on track, keeps you oriented, keeps you motivated. Because when you meet those milestones, you're like, yeah, check mark.
Yeah.
So I would say my word for the year would be goals.
It is. I love that because as a trainer, I talk about goals and success tips. I see your cat's trying to get into the screenshot.
Love that thing.
But I talk about goals and those milestones, and sometimes people wait until they have accomplished the biggest goal ever before they stop and celebrate. And what it is those milestones that keep you going. Those things that say, hey, wait a second, okay, you did that, you can go to the next one. You did that, you can go to the next one.
Mm.
Until you get to that, that breakthrough goal where you go, oh my gosh.
Right. I mean, and as an example, like with the book, I really do want it to a million copies sold. I don't know how long that'll take me to get there. I don't know. I don't have a time frame for it, but that was the goal I set for the book. It's like, this is going to be a million seller. But right now, I think I maybe hit maybe 100 copies or so, which is nothing to sniff at. But I mean,
Right.
every little thing that I can celebrate over, if I get a new review, then I'm thankful for it, and I post about it and I celebrate it, because it just means that's one step closer to where I wanted to go.
That is so awesome. And we're going to talk about reviews, because I always talk about that because it's important for an author. And I know when I wrote my book, I kept asking people, please write a review. Let me know, what you thought, because you just want to know how you resonated with someone, so rather or not it's towards the next book where you might shift things or make some changes, or just to change the way that you thought about something. But reviews, I always encourage readers to write a review. And so you started talking about that. So I'm going to ask you to continue on just that piece there. How important and how grateful are you when you get a review from a reader?
I am super, super excited and ecstatic when I get a review. I mean, it's literally kind of like the best feeling in the world. When you read a review and you see how people have been impacted by your work and they resonated with it and they become your fan, so to speak, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I want more of this. It gives you the best kind of feeling in the world. Not only that, but people have also been able to tell me what they wanted more out of the next book, or
Mm.
what the shortcomings of maybe the first one were, or something that they didn't understand or anything. I get a whole bunch of feedback to not only, like, yes, this worked, but also I get like, okay, I see that. I can do that, better this time around, or I can do this, or I can shape this a little better, or expound on this character a little more. So reviews really do mean the world to me, whether they're good or bad or indifferent. I need to hear them. Authors need to hear them. Most people are like, well, I don't give reviews unless they're good reviews, unless it's 5 or 4 stars or anything. I'm like, no, though it's not fun for an author,
Mm-hmm.
but when we get those bad reviews, but if they're legitimate, I'll say that if they're legitimate reviews and legitimate critiques, they're things we need to know in order to get better. When you put yourself out there in the public, you definitely have to have a thick skin, because not everybody is going to say it nicely, for sure. But those critiques are what's going to make you better, and they don't build a sense of false achievement whenever everybody's just patting you on the back and like, oh, it was great, and they didn't really think so. So I like both ends of the spectrum. Mine might be not so fun, but those reviews are important. Plus, it also helps the book to get seen as well.
I love that, because what you said is so true. Rather the review is positive, or rather it is a carefully crafted critique that makes sense, that will actually allow you to be better, on the next book. So this is definitely something that authors want. I say this every day to our audience and to readers. We like reviews. It takes a few minutes. If it's 4 words, if it's 2 sentences, if it's a paragraph, whatever it is, it helps. It truly does help. It helps with marketing, and it also helps with the next book, because authors generally don't have just one book in them. There, there are multiple books where you're just rambling titles. And I do that. I write them down, and I'm like up to book 10, and I'm just finished one. And so, you're like, hey, that's a good book title. I got to write that down.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, here you have it. Barakah Smith, the author of Stranger in a Familiar Place, where the book is available on Amazon, on iTunes, and at Barnes & Noble. You've got to get this book. And here's an opportunity for you to help her accomplish her goal of being 1 million copies. We can do that. I know you can do that, because once you read the book, you're going to share the book. I guarantee it. You are going to share this book. You're not going to just read it and hold on to it. You're going to tell people about it. They're going to want the book. They're probably going to want yours, and you need to tell them to get their own. So you definitely have an opportunity to do this. I have one final question. And so for you, as you move on to your next book, and I'm thinking about individuals that are sitting here and they're watching this and they're going, I got a story. You know, I have something inside of me that I want to share. What would be your advice to them so that they can at least get started?
It's going to sound cliche, but write it down. Actually, my mother, she got inspired by me writing my book and putting it out, that she wanted to write her own story. And she's like, but I don't know where to start. I don't know where to begin. And I was like, Mom, just start writing. Just put it down to paper and just write. Don't worry about chapters. Don't worry about grammar necessarily. Just get it out of you. You know, just put it down to pen to paper. That's the best place to start. Because as soon as you start, at least for me, at least, ideas keep coming, plot twists come up, like character development, like, oh, it'd be so cool if they could do, well, put it down, you know? There's so many things that happen when you start that writing process, but it really, the magic only happens when you actually just start. I wouldn't worry about the logistics of it. Most people like, well, I got to get a cover. I got to find a publisher. I got to find an editor. Don't worry about any of that kind of stuff. Just write.
I think that is so important, because you know, individuals look for all of those pieces because of what you hear. You need an editor, you need a publisher, and you do need an editor. You got to make sure that your grammar's right. So
right.
But initially, to your point, is write the story. Just get it out in its rawest form. Don't worry about the grammatical errors or the punctuations or any of that. Just get it out in its rawest form, and then you can always go back and tweak.
Indeed, because I mean, it's not a simple process, and even me with this, you know, I'm learning right now, even with the release of this first book, you know, some things that I can do different and things that can enhance for the next time around. But it really was a process, you know, just going back and looking at my work, getting other people to read the work. It took a bit to start it, but just as far as getting started, just right.
There you go. So if you have a book inside of you, the advice from an author is just start. Just start. You just got to lean into it. And when you get that first paragraph out, you'll probably stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning writing. Who knows? You never know until you start. So thank you again, Barakah Smith, for joining us, the author of Stranger in a Familiar Place. Definitely get the book. Go to Amazon, iTunes, Barnes & Noble. You can get the book. You can they follow you? Do you have Facebook?
Yes, I got a Facebook account and it's titled Stranger in a Familiar Place, or they can follow me on Twitter at Barakah Smith.
You got it. And I'm going to put that in the comments too. So you can follow her so you can find out about this next book, because if you read this one, you're going to want to know what happens, what's next for these characters or the new characters, whatever is next, you're going to want to know. So guys, thank you for joining us today. Barakah, thank you so much for joining us. You stay tuned. I am going to just say goodbye to the folks. Thank you guys so much for joining us today for this segment of The Author's Lane. I am so excited to be able to come and bring to you every day a different author that is in a different genre, and it gives you an opportunity to just kind of look at all of the books there are and go, wow, I didn't know that book existed, and now you have an opportunity to get it. And that's what The Author's Lane is about. It's about introducing you or reintroducing you to authors and their pieces of literary work. So thank you for joining me, Cheryl Mays, Rise and Shine CF, the presenters of The Author's Lane. You join us again at tonight, 8 p.m. Here's the thing, 8 p.m. tonight, there is the Authors Lane Watch Party, where you get to ask questions. You get to find out more about the author. You get to ask questions that you would like to have answers to. And you can do that right here on Facebook at riseandshine.success. Join us at 8 p.m. and we'll be back and we'll talk about it. So you have an amazing day. Thank you for joining us.